It's time for Overreaction with Jeff and Ketchum, brought to you by therogueshop.com. Catch, tell everybody about the Rogue Shop, the good people of Rich and his wife, and the products that you and I love. I need to put some salve on my pinky toe, by the way.
Sounds like you need to tell everybody about Rogue Shop. You're in need.
I'm in need. I gotta put the salve on. I should have done it during the break. I'll be honest with you, because I feel a little bit of pain around here. But the rogueshop.com is for all of your legal CBD, THC, everything that's out there, the gummies that you guys want. I tell you what, the benefit for me as a person that needs to get a good night of sleep, having some of those Rogue products in order to get a good night of sleep, put you in so much of a better mood. You have no clue how much of a better day you have when you actually have a good night of rest. And I feel like I've gotten that with the Rogue Shop. I think I've told you before, and I've joked around. I think I could at least have made my first marriage work if I had some Rogue Shop products. I don't know about the second one, but but the Rogue Shop would definitely have done that. But they've got the salves that are out there. We're in 2023. There's no stigmas at all at this point. We use it. Catch uses it. I use it. So many other people use it. And you use that promo code orangebloods.com. You get a percentage off, and it will help you. So rogueshop.com. Rich, tell Rich that we sent you. It's one of our favorite products and one of our favorite partners here at orangebloods.com. Catch. It's been 12 hours since you and I have spoken. So and in fact, hell, Catch, you and I got a good streak going at this moment. You know, we go back to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now Monday. It's almost like the old days, Catch.
It is. I've seen you more than I've seen my kids.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen mine. By the way,
I'm on the Rogue Shop website right now.
Yeah.
Just because I was looking I wanted to talk about, is there something that I haven't had that I haven't had any of the drinks? Have you had any of the Delta 8 drinks?
No, I haven't. As a person who can drink something, I'd be scared of that.
They've got a mixed berry Delta 8 drink for $6. Sounds like the most affordable. I'm just saying, and I always say, go to the website, just check it out, see all the products they have, see what works for you. But I might have to try the watermelon Delta 8 drink when it's all said and done, just out of curiosity. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm distracted by the rogueshop.com products.
So Catch, I would tell you, you and I spoke clearly at length last night as the story kind of broke, and the story that we were obviously breaking on orangebloods.com. So I'm not saying we were following anyone else, but as the news and the details that was able to gather and be able to report, we put that out there last night. You've had conversations on Orange Bloods. I don't know where you've been. I don't know if you've talked to different people or have had anything else to add into it. I'll be honest with you, I had a late night and I decided to sleep in for once. So I'll give the Jeff Ketchum question of where your head's at. So where's your head at as relates to the conversation nearly 12 hours later, knowing that we'll have Steve Sarkisian at 11 o'clock? I prepped everybody, Catch, by saying, hey, don't overreact if he says, hey, he's day-to-day, and then don't come back on us and say, oh, my God, you guys are wrong. And it's like, well, he said day-to-day when Quinn was injured last year, and it ended up being, 2 to 3 weeks. And don't freak out if he doesn't name a starting quarterback on Monday and says, hey, we'll let this team play out and see how it goes into Thursday. And by Thursday, he says, we'll just we'll see who's going to be the starting quarterback. I'll decide in warm-ups when we know he'll already have it. I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Give me what you're thinking right now, Catch.
It's hard not to notice that there's a real nervousness about what comes next for this team this season. I think there's confidence in Maalik Murphy up to a certain extent, right? Like in general, I think everybody agrees he's really talented. Everybody likes him. I think everybody thinks the team will rally around him. But this was a team that was receiving good quarterback play. This was a team that was receiving mostly big mistake-free quarterback play. I mean, whatever Quinn Ewers is or isn't, he's not a guy all season long that's turned the ball over. I think the realization that what they've been working towards all season long suddenly hangs in the balance of a guy that has never been counted on. I just think that there's some general nervousness. In talking to sources in the last 24, 36 hours, there's a lot of, I guess we'll see. I guess, a lot of shoulder shrugs, a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's where we are, in the season right now, is that you've got a team that's 6-1, ranked 7th in the country, and yet its footing for all of the goals that it wants to chase is a little unstable now. And I think that that's got people a little shook. I don't know that they know exactly how the team is going to respond. I don't think they know what their identity is going to be on offense. I think that's one of the things that clearly this week they've got to work through. Who are they with Maalik Murphy as the quarterback versus Quinn Ewers? But I think this is a program that had just started getting settled in the comfort zone of Quinn Ewers is our quarterback, and we can trust that he's going to play well in big games. He's going to protect the football. He's going to get us into the position on the field that we need to be in. And, like my daughter she's 9, but she has her binkies. And every night she likes to go to bed and sleep with her binkies. I don't know how long that's going to last, but if she doesn't have them, it makes her nervous. When she has them, it doesn't. I kind of look at Quinn Ewers as the quarterback of this team as this team's binky. He had really played at a level that had allowed everybody in the program to feel confidence that he would carry them through tough situations. And now you don't have that. And so I think there are going to be other players that get leaned on. Jonathan Brooks got to be a guy that they can lean on. CJ Baxter got to be a guy that they can lean on. Some of the receivers, Jatavian Sanders, like all of these guys have to take on a more assertive leadership role and a producing role. And I think a lot of that had been deferred to Quinn as the season has gone along. He's earned that. I mean, that's what you want out of your quarterback, but it's a lot to ask out of a second-year player who's had virtually no playing time and arrives on the scene and needs to perform at a level that keeps this team in the top 10 and competing for a spot potentially in a Big 12 championship game and maybe something beyond that. And the thing is, there's no guarantee that one loss or even two losses will definitely get you in the Big 12 championship game. One loss you think will, but even that, like if Oklahoma State runs the table, if they were to beat Oklahoma in Bedlam and suddenly there's a 3-way one-loss situation, your wiggle room, your margin for error became minimal even before the injury. And now that it's minimal and there's an injury, like I said, I just think there's a little nervousness in the air.
Yeah, well, it should be, right? I mean, because Quinn Ewers is I would argue, Catch, it's not just the starting quarterback at a University of Texas. Quinn Ewers is Sarkisian's guy. That's the guy that Catch Sark. I mean, that's the guy that Sark identified as that's the quarterback that I need. A couple of years ago when he got here and he's like, these guys that I got, Casey, Hudson, they ain't cutting it for me. Like I've got to find a better quarterback than this. And that ends up being the guy that he's able to get and get to come here. It ends up being the person that he had high hopes for as a starter last season. The injury occurs. And then he had high hopes for all season long. All season long was belief that from start to finish, that he was going to be the guy that, for all the things that Quinn was supposed to have done, as far as cutting the hair and losing the weight and the diet and all that everything, everything we reported on up until yesterday, and the whole transformation. So yeah, it's a binky. It's a huge binky, Catch. Like this is a huge, like, I know I can win with this guy, and I'm prepared to win with this guy. And now you got to go and like talk yourself into. I'm pretty sure we can win with Maalik. I'm pretty sure we can win with Ark. But he went from knowing he could win with Quinn, knowing that, hey, I got a quarterback that can go to Alabama and win and play and do really well on the road. Like, and he went from that kind of security blanket to kind of a great unknown at this moment. And I know, it's so easy to tell yourself like, oh, Texas will be fine. Oh, Texas, it'll be nothing. They'll just throw someone else in and it's going to be there. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes it's not that easy to say. So yeah, there is worry. There is some concern, and we'll hear today when Start Talks. We're going to hear about Maalik and the leadership. We're going to hear about like how the guys gravitate towards him. And we're going to hear all those things, and those things may be true, but it's easier to lead guys, Catch, when you're actually performing on the field as opposed to practice. Because in the practice, that's great. But you ain't going to lead anybody if you don't get the results on the field. Like, it won't matter. Like, all the bravado, all the whatever, all the charisma won't matter if he doesn't do it when it counts. And so, yeah, it becomes, a huge thing. It's not to overcook the grits by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also, you can't undersell how, important, Maalik is in whoever ends up playing, and we'll talk about leashes and all that other kind of stuff, but you can't oversell that. Yeah, this is a huge stretch for this team.
Well, and I think we were really seeing some of the best play from Quinn Ewers that we've seen since he arrived on campus just in the last couple of weeks. You think back to the Oklahoma game, he ends up, I can't even remember what the stats were, but the only incompletion in the second half, like 22 of 24, or 22 of 23 of his last throws, was the deep ball to Xavier Worthy that they didn't throw a pass interference. That's the only incompletion that he had. You go to Saturday against Houston, and while the offense was in a rut from the second quarter deep into the fourth quarter, Ewers was still playing an amazingly efficient game throwing the football. It's one of the things he hasn't been since he arrived at Texas is he's not a guy that, from a completion percentage standpoint, has been amongst the elite of the elite amongst his peers. A guy like Caleb Williams will have more than 85% from adjusted completion percentage. That includes all drops, right? So he's not being punished for balls that get dropped. Ewers are hanging around 70, 75%, well below where the elite quarterbacks across the country sit. But in the last two games, his completion percentage was like up near 90%. Above that on Saturday when you look at adjusted passing percentage. So you lose that. Like, one of the things that this offense is it's going to be a different offense. I don't know that Maalik Murphy's going to complete 60% of his passes. Like, that's about where Ewers was when he first got started as a starting quarterback at Texas. So you're going to be less efficient from the passing game standpoint. Are you going to be more big play? Are you going to be, more throw it down the field? Because that may suit what Maalik Murphy does best, certainly at this point. But you're going to be a different offense. And it's been an offense that has struggled a little bit in the last two games. It wasn't great against Oklahoma. It was good enough. They probably should win the game. But, you think about, they scored 30 points that day. 7 came on a block punt. So they haven't been good in the red zone. They weren't great on Saturday. So this is an offense that's, I think, hit some bumps in the roads with Quinn Ewers on the field. And I don't think it's been like a Quinn Ewers problem, but the offense has been hitting some speed bumps, and I think they've got to figure out getting through those speed bumps while doing it with a new quarterback now. They're going to get into the red zone. They haven't been a good red zone team. They haven't been finishing drives with a guy that is projected to be a first-round quarterback in the upcoming draft. Now you're adding a guy that's fully inexperienced, and you still need to make those improvements and do it with a guy that you don't, I think, completely trust in all situations. It's just harder. Now, the good news is I think BYU is a very beatable football team. But I think in the coming – look, Kansas State in 12 days, that's a difficult game. They are a team that's been getting better as the season goes along. They seem to have found a little something in the dual quarterback play that they've got. You've got TCU in 19 days. I think one of the things that will prove to be frustrating for Quinn Ewers, his camp, the Texas coaches, the players, is there's just a lot of games thick and fast coming on the schedule, and it doesn't set up well for Ewers to have time to let this injury fully get better. We're going to eventually get to a point, whether it's it'll probably be the game in Fort Worth, where it's like, hey man, can you play with the pain? Hey man, can you take the needle? Will you take the needle this week so that you can play in a game and maybe come back earlier than some NFL guys do, because we need you. And then you're going to have Quinn Ewers and his leadership, his team, his parents, his agents, lawyers, all those people are going to be thinking to themselves, it may not be in your best interest to come back early. I don't know that's what Quinn Ewers should do for himself, but the games get problematic. After the game in TCU, then you got to play at Ames. These are going to be difficult games against defenses that play schemes that Sarkisian has struggled against in his 3 years at Texas. And suddenly there's a lot on Maalik Murphy's plate. They don't have time for him to be okay. They don't have time for him to slowly figure this out. They've got to continue winning games, and they got to figure out on defense how they can be better, because we've seen this defense regress so the defense that was great 3-4 weeks ago, Anwar, was the type of unit that you would say, well, yeah, you know what? Quinn's got an injury, but we're not going to let the other team score more than 20 points. So how much do you need from Maalik Murphy? But we've seen in the last couple of weeks, they're giving up more points. They're struggling defending the pass. They've got injuries on that side of the ball as well. Like, there's a lot going on at the same time for this Texas team. And I think you start in 5 days against BYU, and this team just needs to come out and play 4 quarters of good football to reestablish stability. And that's not just at the quarterback position. That's everywhere, but it's easier said than done. I mean, if it was that easy, they'd have just cakewalked their way once up 21-0 against Houston. But this is suddenly a team that's not completely finding everything easy to do. And now they've got to figure out how to get back to that with quarterback play that is uncertain at this point.
Yeah, John Hendricks is in the super chat catch. He goes, when will the DB coaches be held accountable? Since year one, missed tackles due to bad angles, coverage bust in every game, DBs 12 yards off receivers, even in the red zone. Enough. Do you agree?
I mean, look, the coaches are accountable, need to be accountable for everything, period. It's their jobs. Sarkisian makes millions. He's got assistants who make millions. He's got other assistants who make high 6 figures. Like, their job is to figure out some of this stuff. I think the coaches would say, hey, we don't disagree with you, but Ryan Watts is hurt and Jalen Catalon is out of the lineup. And by the way, Sark and this whole injury thing right? Like, hey, everybody practice. Well, where was Jalen Catalon? If everybody practiced, where was he on Saturday? Now you've got Gavin Holmes who gets banged up on Saturday. They are now and for the first half of the season, this was a team that really, I think, had some luck on their side with regards to injuries. They weren't, when Sanders gets hurt, that's like the first starter that was maybe missing a little bit of time or limited, like severely limited. But now, we've seen the offensive line go through injuries and thankfully for Jake Majors and the line, he was able to come back. But defensively, they're really banged up. They're really banged up in the secondary. And I think it's really alarming. I thought Sarkisian said a bunch of eye-opening things in the postgame. But one of the most eye-opening, and look, depending on how you want to interpret the comment, this could be him telling his coaches like WTF. But when he says we have to figure out who to play, you're 7 games into the season. Like, we're supposed to be beyond the point of still trying to figure out who the right guys should be on the field. That you're going into week 8 not knowing maybe who your safeties should be, not knowing who you can trust. That was for me on Saturday. If you eliminate the Quinn Ewers injury, where they are suddenly defensively and some of the words coming out of Sarkisian's mouth when talking about it is a little alarming.
Can I let me just voice a little frustration with this. Because yes, I'm not disagreeing to anything you're saying. And everything I'm saying is nothing I'm saying is going to be directed at you, Catch. But here's where I get a little of a disconnect. You can't tell me, Catch, all off season how deep this team is. You can't tell me how, this is a 2-deep team, one of the deepest. We got so many guys in the secondary. We don't even know who to play. Like, I mean, we're just so deep with the cornerbacks, so deep with safeties. Like, my gosh, we are just stacked, like overflowing with talent. But I finally got the team that I want. And then a couple of guys go down. It's like, man, I don't even know what's going on back there. Wait, no. You can't have it both ways, man. It's either you got a couple of guys that can do it, or you got everybody that can do it, and it's you're at the point where it's next man up. And all I heard all off season, Catch, was that they got enough depth to have next man up. Like that's all I heard. That's all I heard from the staff. And so now when the rubber meets the road, this is where I'm like, if you said it and you said like we're good, then you're good. But don't wait until the now all of a sudden don't switch out now, Catch. I don't want to hear. I understand injuries are occurring. Injuries aren't necessarily occurring though to guys who are quote unquote all Americans. They're guys at this point. And so clearly, I mean, and I don't mean like a Quinn Ewers. I'm talking about from the defensive standpoint. And there's a list, Catch. I've got the list. By the way, let me show you. I'm actually going to print this out. Hold on, let me show you. Let me write it down for you so you can see. That I had somebody on Orange Bloods. He was kind enough to put this out. I'll put it in here, and I'll also put it in the chat for everybody to see as well. That's kind of our running list of injured guys at this moment. I mean, it's a pretty. The list is going up and higher. So there are some questions to be had. And I'll put this in the chat for everybody as well. But now it's just, I'm curious about it. I'm curious as to why now we don't know. Damn, I probably should have used a comma in there so people can differentiate who's who. But if you read it slow,
that looks like you're having a baby, Anwar, and those are the names that you're considering for the baby.
Yeah, Eric, can you cut and paste that and then just put some commas in there? So because that's so it's so horrible. I have people who do that with me every once in a while, catch, to put the super chat in that's really long with no punctuation, and you just spend too much time trying to figure it out. So injuries are mounting, catch. But yeah, if you're after 7 games saying, yeah, we got to figure out who to put back there, I'm like, you do? Because I thought you had enough. Like I thought I thought Derek Williams was a future first round pick. That if your safeties weren't getting job done, that he's ready to go. Like the Maalik Muhammad's of the world, like all that. Thank you, Aaron. Now, catch. We got Gavin Holmes, Terrence Brooks, Ryan Watts. See, that makes it so much better. Alfred Collins, Ethan Burke, Jet Bush, Jalen Catalon, Cole Hudson, Christopher Ross. And again, that has nothing to do with Quinn Ewers and that list as well.
Well, I think, when you look at the secondary, let's start at the cornerback position, because there was a sense that they got 4 starters. Like they're playing, you play 2, but Gavin Holmes and Maalik Muhammad as backups, they're essentially starters. So Watts gets hurt, and then Terrence Brooks hasn't really been playing well. So that, like, at least in the last, and he definitely didn't play. Like I thought Saturday was the most exposed that we've ever seen Terrence Brooks play. I thought the secondary actually held up pretty well against Oklahoma. It wasn't like they gave up some big plays and they missed tackles, but they never let Gabriel get comfortable and get into a rhythm. Going into that last drive, he was sitting at about 55% completion percentage. So you're doing something good in the back end when that guy is sitting closer to 50% than he is 70. But I think Saturday, Brooks doesn't play well. Gavin Holmes is the replacement for Ryan Watts, who is suited up and could go, but they decided not to play. I think they also took Houston for granted. You look at Jahdae Barron well enough to play in the second half, suited up, but it looks like they thought, we can beat this team without him. We don't necessarily have to risk him.
Yeah.
And, I think maybe a lesson learned by these coaches is that even when you're playing against some of the dregs of the Big 12, this team's not good enough that it can't play without its best players. So, that Brooks and Holmes, not so much Muhammad for me, but that Holmes and Brooks struggled at corner was one thing. And look, at safety, they've just been a big old rotating, can't quite figure out who the standouts are all season long. I mean, you go back to the Kansas game and they got themselves into a position where Keaton Crawford gets beat for a big long touchdown play, matched up in coverage. Houston was targeting him every time he was on the field on Saturday. I don't know that Michael Taft is the answer. I don't know if athletically he can do everything that they need him to, even if it looks like he knows where he's supposed to be. I think Derek Williams is part of like what's going right in theory, but he's still a young guy, still trying to figure it out. I think Jalen Catalon, when he has been on the field, has just been okay. There's been a couple times this season where he's come downhill and made big hits and made you go, oh, okay, he can do that. But we've never really seen these guys thriving, creating plays. And I think one of the things the defense has going against it right now is they lack playmakers. And Sarkisian finally said it on Saturday. We need some dudes that are going to sack the quarterback, and we need some dudes that are going to create some turnovers. And they're not getting that. And they really haven't been getting that all season from the secondary. When you depend on Jalen Ford, and he did it again on Saturday, helping create a turnover. But when you rely too much on one player, it will tax a defense. And I think the problems with the pass rush, which was a concern coming into the season, but they get through the early part of the schedule and it felt like, well, there's no one great pass rusher, but we got a bunch of really good players, especially in the interior, who can create that pass rush. So it's not such a big deal that we're not great at edge. Barron Sorrell, I mean, look, man, we love the dad. We root for Barron to have success. he's having an incredibly disappointing season from a production standpoint. And maybe he's playing really well, and the coaches would say, well, it's not all about sacks. Sometimes it's about pressures. Pressures can be as good as sacks. But Sorrell is supposed to be a double-digit sack guy or close to that this season. It hasn't happened. Ethan Burke has cooled down. There's nobody really behind those two guys. Christopher Ross was a guy that was giving him a little bit of something, and he got hurt. Your linebacking core is not – they're not getting – they just don't have guys making plays on defense. And they definitely haven't had enough plays being made over the course of the last couple of games. That's part of what has to change against BYU. This is an older team. This is an older team with young depth that Sarkisian and these coaches don't completely trust. And I think they don't trust them because they're thinking, look, we're ranked 7th in the country. We got a bunch of older dudes. Why is Jonte Cook not getting on the field? Well, they feel good about the older guys they have at wide receiver. You know, you look on the offensive side of the ball, not even saying out loud, I need to play Jonte Cook more, means that Jonte Cook plays more. Like, he says it, but then he didn't do it. And I think, you know, I think that they go to Gavin Holmes instead of Maalik Muhammad for a lot of that game. I think they go with other safeties instead of Derek Williams for large portions of the game. It's a hell of a thing in week 8 to suddenly be trying to find yourself and who you are, especially when weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you thought you knew exactly who you were on defense, and they're not that. They're not elite. They're not a great defense. They do lack playmakers. They do lack a pass rush. They do have questions in the secondary. They do have a linebacker unit. When was the last time we said David Benda's name out loud in terms of making a play? It's been a month at least. So, you know, they're at a point now, these things add up together, and it creates a situation like Saturday where if there had been another 15 minutes to play, Texas loses that game on Saturday. They were not stopping Donovan Smith. They had 4 receivers with 68 yards or more receiving. I mean, you know, if one guy went out, another guy came in and gained 20. U of H had Texas on the ropes. And credit to the offense. In the final 5 minutes of that game, they ran the ball. The offensive line took over, and they got the touchdown that they needed. But if they play another 15 minutes, Texas might lose that game. And it was about the totality of the team's play and not the Quinn Ewers injury that got them there.
And I think the thing is, Ketch, just to kind of add on to it, is what's happening right now with the defense is kind of something that we kind of warned Texas fans about for weeks, but now we're seeing the byproduct of it, which is, for the most part, Ketch, Texas hadn't really played a quarterback with a pulse for most of the season. And they faced a Jalen Monroe in week 2, who, you know, he was still kind of sorting his way through everything, and they kind of had a good game plan for him. And everybody else was just guys. You know, the JT Daniels was just guys. The Wyoming quarterback was a backup. Like, you know, they just went through a bunch of just Jags. And what has happened? They've faced Dylan Gabriel, quarterback with a pulse. They faced Donovan Smith, a quarterback with a pulse. And they've struggled against guys who can actually do different things, whether it's throw the ball, whether it's run and move around. I think that becomes the challenge here. What we've seen, I think, what happened earlier, and that we said it like, hey, win's a win. Take your wins, stack your wins. Not a problem with getting your wins.
Especially now.
Yes, right now. Now you're bowl eligible. You got your wins. That's all that matters. But the issue was that at the end of the day, Catch, this defense was having some success, but the success that they had prior to the last 2 games was a bunch against a bunch of quarterbacks who were duds at the end of the day. Outside, again, Milroe's starting to get a little bit better, but everybody else was just And I think that is why now all of a sudden going forward, you say to yourself, okay, well, BYU's got a quarterback that's probably not that good, But then what happens when they start facing some quarterbacks with some pulses? Now that now it's starting to become a little bit more challenging for them in this defense.
I think the most disappointing aspect of where we are is that this is the end of October now, so the sample size is larger. We're not just talking about a game. This is not a team that's made a improvement from September to October. If anything, especially if you add in the Ewers injury, although maybe it's not completely fair to do that, but this is a team that's regressed in October, certainly have regressed on defense. It'll get lost with the Ewers injury, especially since they scored a touchdown to win the game. Shouldn't be overlooked. That's a bad Houston defense that they played on. It's bad. They're in the hundreds in almost every category. They're one of the worst defenses in the country. And from the moment Texas goes up 21-0, establishing pretty bad defense, Texas went more than 37 minutes of actual time on the clock between touchdowns. It's a bad defense. And what did the bad defense do? Well, they weren't performing well in their base look. So they switched to that old 3-3-5. And suddenly the Texas offense becomes such a disaster that Sarkisian thought that fake field goal was a good idea. I mean, if you were going to go for it on 4th and 6, if you were just going to go for it, you've got Worthy, Mitchell, Sanders, Whittington. I mean, just line up in your offense and go get 6 yards. That they got to a point offensively where it was like, well, you know what our best play is? Throwing it to Bert Auburn. It speaks to a little bit of what this offense is going through suddenly. And look, frankly, the rest of the schedule, if you're a coach on the schedule defensively in these final 5 games and you're not running some 3-3-5, and oh, by the way, Iowa State, Kansas State, they do a lot of that. But if you're not, this is Sarkisian's kryptonite. And look, our guy Sodium on the website, when he brought up the 3-3-5 early in the season, even maybe after the Rice game, I was like, come on, man. Sarkisian's been an NFL offensive coordinator. He's arguably one of the top 5 offensive coordinators in the country. He can deal with this. He can deal with the 3-3-5. I refused to subscribe to the idea that this defense was really that big of a problem. In my mind, I was thinking, you know what? You know why Sarkisian and this offense struggled against that defense the first couple of years? It's because they had inconsistent or bad quarterback play. Like, that'll get you that will slow an offense down. But that hasn't been the case this year. I'm dumbfounded at the notion that when teams adjust to what Texas does offensively, that Sarkisian and his offensive coaches don't have answers. I cannot believe they played 7 games this year, and after 3 of them, Sarkisian has tried to explain why the offense has struggled mid-game because other coaches on other teams didn't exactly do what Sarkisian thought they were going to do. I'm confused because I thought the job of the other team was to do things to confuse and throw off the Longhorns. Like I literally, when they played BYU on Saturday, Anwar, BYU's defensive coaches, their job is to try to confuse and throw things at Texas that Texas isn't ready for, prepared for. And when you get paid millions of dollars like Sarkisian and you're supposed to be the best at what you do, your job then as the coach, an elite coach, is to have responses, to have your own tricks up your sleeve for that exact moment when teams throw tricks up their sleeve. And I think the most damning thing of Saturday was that at about midway through the second quarter, it felt like Texas ran out of ideas on offense. Hence, throwing the ball to Burt Auburn on 4th and 6. I mean, if you want to be aggressive and go for it, believe me, there are some weapons that you can take advantage of, but no, we're going to run the fake field goal, and it was a disaster. And don't hide behind, well, we're going to be aggressive. We're all gas, no brakes. No, you're not. This team isn't all gas. They were all gas, no brakes against Alabama. We really haven't seen a lot of all gas, no brakes the rest of the season. It annoys me. I'm not mad about it, but it annoys me when Sarkisian hides stupidity behind the idea of aggressiveness. The fake field goal was stupid, and it didn't take 20/20 hindsight to go, well, that was just dumb. Like, that was just dumb. And Sarkisian even says afterwards, like, well, if I had to do all over again, I wouldn't do it. But hey, I've only got 10 seconds to make up my mind. Do you know who else only has 10 seconds to make up their mind? Every freaking coach in college football. Like, that's the deal. That's the job assignment. They put a play clock. Every 40 seconds, you have to call a new play. You have to make a new decision. Both sides of the ball have to do it. And getting it right in quick fashion, that's the job. And when something like that doesn't come off, it's like, oh, well, you can't get mad at us when we're aggressive. No, that wasn't aggressive. That was stupid. And don't say we're always aggressive, because you're not. You haven't been all season long. Sometimes it's been some gas, some brakes. So this team in these final 5 weeks on both sides of the ball, they got to find themselves. They've got to reinvent who they are. They have to become one of the best teams in college football all over again, because in the last 2 games, they haven't been remotely one of the best teams in college football. That's who they are. Their ranking says number 7 in the country, one of the best teams in college football. Their play for the last 3 weeks has been anything but. And the challenge in these final 5 games, they got to find that. They got to rediscover their mojo. Because I'm going to tell you right now, this team right now would not go into Tuscaloosa today and beat Jalen Milroe in Alabama if they played this game again. The thing that they were in week 2 in September is not the thing that they are right now as the calendar gets ready to switch to November. And with 5 games to go and with so much on the line, they're not going to get to the finish line the way they want to if they can't find a way to get really good again on both sides of the ball.
All right, Church, we got about 5 super chats that are in here. So let's go ahead and start knocking some of these out. Shook One says, how bad are Larry Turner and BJ Allen? I mean, WTF at this point? I mean, I guess it's kind of self-explanatory at this point, Catch.
I mean, the question answers itself.
Yeah, I mean, Shook, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but, with a certain degree it is. If they ain't seeing the field now, there's a reason why. Jason throws in a $10 super chat. The constant rotation of players at safety is brutal. Do you guys feel we would be maybe below less coverages if we stuck with a core group of guys instead of constantly rotating safety groups? Sark talked about, he felt like the rotations were good on defense because they were able to become a fourth quarter team. Like, so he thinks in their mind, this rotating thing is the thing that helps them, to close out games. We just haven't really necessarily seen that, the byproduct of that over the last 2 weeks, but he's spoken highly of what he thinks for, the benefit of a defensive rotation is.
First of all, I just wanted to say, Jason, thank you for being such a good super chatter and question ask. Like, his questions are good every week. Sometimes Jason and I have butted heads on Orange Bloods over the years, but his questions in the super chats this season, really good. Attaboy, Jason. Just wanted to give you a little bit of love. I think Sark convinced himself that the rotation is the reason why they were playing so well, and not because they kept getting backup quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, they weren't playing first 6 games of the season. They played Jalen Milroe, who hadn't found himself yet. Like Jalen Milroe, I mean, he's not great, but he's better today than he was then. Like he's grown up a little bit. But you get the Wyoming backup quarterback, and it's a 10-10 game in the fourth quarter. Kansas plays Jason Bean, who's okay, but man, let me tell you what, they're lucky they didn't get a healthy Jalen Daniels. And who knows, maybe you don't see a healthy Jalen Daniels the rest of the season, and that's just the way it goes. But, that Kansas game was really competitive going into the second half. That was with the backup quarterback. Whatever Texas is getting right now, they're getting starting quarterbacks. I think Keaton Slovis is terrible. He will enter the game. There's a reason why, just like JT Daniels, he's played on like 19 different college football teams.
Sure.
He has a 127 quarterback rating on the season.
Damn.
I said it yesterday, Anwar. That's essentially what Tyrone, you remember in 2014 when we put the Tyrone Swoops highlight video together? Do you remember that?
You talking about I don't think it was good highlights though, right?
Well, I think Taylor was shooting the video, and we had all of this video, and Tyrone Swoops had played kind of good in a couple of games down the stretch that season.
I don't remember this.
We put together a highlight tape of Tyrone Swoops, and the thing that was funny about that was that when we released it, he had a 127 quarterback rating.
Oh, God.
And then I think the last game of the season was against TCU, and then the rating dropped not to 127. But that's who Keaton Slovis is. Like, in my mind, when I hear 120, that's my bar. 127 is Tyrone Swoops at his worst. If I hear less than 127, like if it's 115, that's like Case McCoy. Like, it's kind of how I view numbers. It's like if you want to look at it like, what does the number mean? This is what it means. This is what it accounted to when Texas had guys posting these types of numbers. They should bury Keaton Slovis on Saturday. He's not good. But Donovan Smith's only like a 140 quarterback rating going into the game against Texas. And the dude threw for like almost 400 yards. Again, if Houston scores a touchdown late, I think they play for overtime because I think you only go for it for 2 if you think you're the underdog. But at that point in the game, you've got your starting quarterback. Texas doesn't. And before Texas scores that last touchdown, you're on a 24-3 run over the course of almost 40 minutes of football. So had they scored a touchdown and kicked the extra point, it would have been a 31-10 run over the last almost 45 minutes of play. I think they go into overtime and take their chances that Texas can't stop Donovan Smith. And you know what? If all we have to do is stop the run and maybe not necessarily worry about the Texas quarterback position, maybe we can do that. It would have been really interesting to see how Houston would have approached that. But I think they would have gone to overtime. I think they played it the way they did late and trying to run some of the clock off and trying to get Texas to use up timeouts because I don't think they wanted to give the ball. I think they would have wanted to go into overtime and not leave too much time had they scored points. I'm so fascinated by Saturday. We have more questions. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
I think we have three more. We got 4 more. So we got 4 more, and I'm starting to get under the gun because I got to get down. So Colin Down says, Pete is the Tom Herman of defense. I understand rotating defensive line for the rest and stay fresh, but the secondary, who else does this?
I think rotating the secondary is about trying to keep everybody happy. We don't want guys to transfer, which is odd because they don't do any rotation at receiver. I don't know. I'm stuck on war with the Pete is the Tom Herman of defense. That is so cold-blooded. I don't completely know how to respond to that.
Yeah, it is. What's interesting, because I don't know what I don't know is what aspect of Tom he's referring to, though. So that's why I'm kind of curious. Like, is he referring to offense or defense?
I think it's just meant to be insulting.
Okay, well then fine. Then I don't need any further explanation.
I think he was just being insulting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't understand, because I was like, well, what? I don't remember us talking about Tom's defense rotating, so wasn't quite sure. He rotated a lot of receivers, so but
maybe
anyway.
That's what he meant. I don't know.
Okay, well, yeah. Colin Downs, he goes, we got lit up in the secondary on a one route combination, zero adjustment. Talk about the definition of insanity. It's funny he says that. I got a text from a source yesterday, and it said, see if I can. Someone says the Joker D is Sark's nemesis because he calls 2-man routes and they have 4 guys in coverage. Needs to run quick game or they are effed. First quarter was quick game and then he went away from it. That's from a source. So it's really, it is interesting. He said 1-man routes. Someone said they run some 2-man routes. But there's 4 guys in coverage.
But they're talking about that source sounded like he was talking about the Texas offense. That
yes, correct.
They were running quick game in the first half and then change that. Whereas Collins.
I see what Colin's saying. My bad. Yeah, I'm sorry, Colin. But there you go. Here's some more information on what they were talking about the offense. And there is a 1-man route there as well. So thank you for yes, brave fart, but thank you, John Hendricks. We got some free information just out of there. Okay. Well, he were doing this. Is Sark incompetent? How does he not spend all summer coming up with ways to beat the 3-3-5? Instead, we didn't prepare for that because the team didn't show they would run that. What WTF? You know what's even more fascinating than that, Catch? Is that it continues to happen and it continues to be like, I can't believe this happened again, right? It's like
Sark, why are you surprised?
The definition of it, it's like it keeps happening. It's like, darn it, man. But it's kind of like, but I have this game plan that's right here. I want to use this. Oh well, now I guess I have to do something else.
Dude, I'm telling you, 37 plus minutes between touchdowns for Texas with an offense that has 8 NFL players on it, including linemen. I mean, first-round quarterback. Kuiper's got Jonathan Brooks as the number 2 NFL running back prospect in the country right now. Worthy, Mitchell, Sanders, Banks, Christian Jones. That's 7. I mean, this isn't a talent issue. So why are you going 37 minutes between touchdowns against one of the worst defenses in the country? Well, the answer seems pretty obvious, right? It is this 3-3-5. No one's asked Sark specifically about it. You know why? Because it's kind of insulting. No one wants to be the guy that says, Sark, you guys can't deal with this 3-3-5. Are you incompetent? Nobody wants to ask for good reasons, right? It sounds like you're being an asshole, but there's truth to it. When they struggled this season offensively, a lot of times it was Wyoming. This is what Wyoming did. And Wyoming was a 10-10 game in the fourth quarter. And what did Sark say after the game? Well, they showed us something that we hadn't seen from them on film. And it's like, well, Sark, so is that your kryptonite? That if teams just don't do what you're expecting them to do, you can't adjust? You can't? Because Texas looked like a team offensively on Saturday that had a script that they followed. And then when the script ran out, there wasn't much behind it. And it coincided with Sark telling us that they switched to something that they had. It just makes it sound like Sark The thing is, Sark, here's what I would advise Anwar. Don't ever say that again out loud. Even if it's true, treat that like you treat injuries. Don't say anything. Just say, well, we think we know what was going on, but I don't want to really comment on it until we go back and look at film a little bit. Never say out loud again in a post-game situation that you struggled because the other team started doing stuff that you weren't prepared for. Because the whole job, Sark's going to go in and ask for a raise, Anwar. I want to get paid more than my 5.5. And if I'm the AD, I would say, well, you know what? We give raises to coaches who are prepared in games. And you have told us in half the games this year, you weren't prepared.
And I love it, by the way, that I see everyone in the chat trying to pump me up to ask the question. These are the same people who, going into week 2, when I asked Sark a simple question, and I referenced Jeff Banks saying, hey, they're going to treat Bama just like another game. What do you tell the team about it? Do you approach it like it's just another game, or you tell them it's something more? And then Sark goes back and forth with me over the most innocent question. You asked me what Jeff Banks had said or what I said. That's like what I'm asking for. What you said, Jeff Banks and me. I'm asking for your opinion. Jeff Banks, and then it's like, what a dumb question, Anwar, because God forbid that your coach got upset. Like it's just so funny. Like the questions that the people want me to ask all surround around how pissed off they are. Yeah. If they're pissed off, then go ahead and ask it. But if you're not pissed off, you're an a-hole for asking the question. So you know
what?
They
want you to be an a-hole today.
Do they or do they not? Because
they do until you do it, and then they're going to turn on you again.
And then all of a sudden, there's a thread on Orange Bloods. That's all I hear is about the Austin media is this, the Austin media is that. So it's never a win. It's either you're too soft or you're too much of an a-hole because you're all like Kurt Bowles. And like I just need y'all to leave me alone. Because if I ask him about it, and I find a way to word it, I don't want to hear anybody bitching to me this afternoon talking about, oh, there's on where you're asking all type of questions. Stop it. I literally asked a simple question of what do you tell the team, and I had a back and forth with this man, and I didn't see nobody get my back.
By the way, Colin says he had more. Colin, you're right. He does have more than 10 seconds, but they do have to get the play in, so he doesn't have a full 40 seconds.
He ain't trying to. He don't know what 40 seconds looks like. What's the delay of game for Sarkisian? What is that?
I'm just All right, what else do we got?
Had one?
Aaron, any others?
Catch, has he ever had a delay of game penalty?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like anything that's been much of a problem for they're dealing with things. Getting the snap off in time typically isn't one of them.
I feel like there was a one time or so they had a delay of game coming out of like a break or something like that once, but I feel like it's very minimal in game though.
If Sark gets a delay of game, he's like, reset the clock. It wasn't us. It was you.
The clock operator screwed us because I'm clicking this thing at 20 seconds. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Who needs that whole thing? All right, Catch. That's it, Aaron. We're all caught up.
He gave us a thumbs up.
Nope, no, we're not because Colin just dropped in another one.
Oh.
Nothing but praise from this end you do. Well, first of all, I'm not going to ask him if he's incompetent, okay? And all right, can we talk about wording for a second? Like I can't. There has to be there's a way to ask it. Like, hey, and I'll think about
Coach,
it. Right now.
You guys struggled somewhat this season when teams have switched defenses that you guys didn't prepare for. I'm trying to think of how do you ask it in a way where you don't make it sound like you're asking if he's stupid or incompetent.
How do you improve in that area? Is there a way to improve in that area?
I'll buy you lunch at Pluckers if you just flat out ask, Steve, is the 3-3-5 defense with the 3 safeties, is that your kryptonite? I'll hang up and listen.
So what about you guys want me to ask about? I got injuries that people want me to ask about.
The thing is, if you don't ask about the injuries, nobody else will. You got a lot of pressure on you, Anwar. You only get one damn question.
I got 8 injured guys. Go ahead, Catch.
And oh, by the way, one of the questions today, I think one of the most important questions is, it seems like you told the TV guys that Maalik Murphy was injured throughout last week. How injured was he? Is that a problem this week? Is this a 75% Maalik Murphy?
This is.
Oh, I'll give Terry $50. I will, Anwar. I'll give Terry 50. I'll buy him Eddie V's. I'll buy him dinner at Eddie V's. If he's like,
yes.
If he asks, Coach, seems like you've struggled with the 3-3-5 defense. Is that a tough defense to counter? I will. Sports Illustrated, dinner on me.
So can I tell you, when I worked in other media groups, whether it's been like Tampa, Detroit, done national stuff, often I would tell you this. Sometimes we would huddle, even if we were on opposite, reports or whatever, like newspapers or online stuff, and we would actually talk about, hey, what needs to be asked, and we kind of say, all right, okay, why don't you ask that? You ask that, and we make sure we got all the important things answered. But here in Austin, it's just the wild, wild west. It's just everybody is just asking whatever the hell is in their head that they thought of, that they're like, I have the story that I want to write. And so I think today I'm going to write about Adonai Mitchell. And so I'm going to ask Coach about Adonai Mitchell today. And this person's going to say, I'm going to write a story about Jake Majors. And it's not necessarily trends. It's not necessarily things that are happening that are relevant to this week. It's just something that I'm just thinking.
No, man, I think you're right. But the bigger problem is you got dudes on this beat that raise their hand to ask a question, and they don't really have a question. So what ends up happening is Sark's address, like there's some momentum behind a discussion of something that's important, and then somebody will raise their hand, and you can tell. I got one guy in mind I'm thinking of specifically that'll be like, Sark, hold on. I'm literally thinking this up in my head as I ask the question. Let me think. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Like, can you talk about Xavier Worthy? And then just like, there's no reason for it. There's not even an article on Xavier Worthy that's coming out that week. It's just, hey, I felt like I needed to ask a question, but I haven't spent any time thinking of what should be a good question. I just threw something out of my ass. It drives me crazy.
A lot of them drive me crazy, to be quite honest with you, Cat.
You got to go. Hey, we got to wrap up.
My foot's flared up, so I got a limp. I got a limp from Brazos over to Mon, to the 9th floor. So yes, check it out. Make sure rogueshop.com. Rogueshop.com. Make sure you use that promo code orangebloods.com. Hit it up for all. I'm about to put some salve on my pinky toe so I can see, hopefully limp up into the 9th floor there. So make sure just within the next couple of hours, Jeff Ketchum and Rogue Shop. That's the best promo there is.
I feel better already.
Man, I may have to use some for my pain. And then, of course, I want to be able to ask figure out one of the 5 questions I need that you guys want me to ask. And, of course, Jeff Ketchum, House Divided, Jeff Ketchum with Chad Hastings. I know that he's going to have a huge reaction to everything that Sark said. I'll think about 335. I need that. I'll ask it. But I need that Plugger's gift card like in email form. I can't wait until I see you because I only see you once a year.
No, what do you mean once a year?
Once a year. I see you once a year. You don't even live in the area.
Yeah, but I come into the area frequently.
I see you once a year.
I don't think that's right.
I'm not asking unless it's going to be emailed.
I'm not going to email you a Plucker's coupon.
I'm not going to see you. This is like an Alex bet then.
I might just PayPal. I mean, I might PayPal. I just might PayPal you some cash.
By the way, this is the hilarious part. Me telling my boss what I'm not going to do.
Hey, this is how you know you have a good boss. I wasn't even insulted by that.
I was like, I don't care what my boss tells me to do. I ain't doing it unless you email me some food.
You know, a lot of people would be happy not to see their boss but once a year. You're over here complaining about it.
All right. Let me get out of here. Let me lift my ass down to the University of Texas with my broken ass pinky toe. You guys take care. Jeff Ketchum, make sure you tune in at noon to hear everything that he's got to say. I know it's going to be straight fire. Let me get out of here. Thank you, Aaron, for everything you do behind the scenes. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.